near the bottom and give it a minute.
Okay. It says, all right. I want to thank Ms. Jackson for agreeing to be a part of my interview. Ms. Jackson is a teacher, well, department head, math department head here at Cedar Grove High School. And I'm unsure how many years you've been here, Ms. Jackson. It's been a long time.
Yeah, 12 years,
Okay.
13 maybe.
Okay. And we're here today for her to answer some questions on leadership in an online learning during a pandemic. So my first question is, how do you prepare for a sudden change in how students will learn slash receive instruction? So how can one as a teacher, as a leader in the building prepare for such a sudden change in how the students will learn?
So we actually were not prepared in March of 2020, and we learned lessons from that. As a teacher, we need to have skills that allow us to engage the students remotely. And we also have to have better technical skills. So speaking on the level of a teacher, that's what we have focused on. We've made sure there has been professional learning, but I really have to give it up for the teachers for all the independent research that they did. And they brought ideas to the table. And through collaboration, we were able to improve our lessons over time. So, for example, we learned how to use tools that allowed students to explore. We learned various facets of the Teams video conferencing that allowed us to do, to improve our math instruction. We did not want this to be like virtual school where they just do work, turn it in, and get a credit.
Okay.
Now,
Um,
as a department, we had to prepare with, equipment. So we purchased the XP pens for the department so that teachers could write on whiteboards and demonstrate skills for students from a distance. And right now, as a school, we're prepared to suddenly go remote because teachers have Google Classroom set up for each class. They know how to use Teams and set it up for the start of the semester. So we could suddenly go remote and be prepared.
okay. As a leader in the building, how concerned are you about students' academic growth at this time?
I'm very concerned.
Mhm.
The data support the level of concern I have. NWEA analyzed nationwide data and they find bigger gaps in mathematics than other areas. So it is hurting students uh, in all areas, but it's hurting them, it appears, the most in math.
Okay. Speaking of math and referring back to your first answer, the challenges in keeping them engaged. Could you explain some of them that you experienced with keeping the students engaged?
Yes, initially the district said cameras could not be on.
Hmm.
And that was a misstep. That's been rectified this year. And so we found that students weren't even getting out of bed to attend class. They were logging in, and that was it. We had to use many different strategies, like, calling on students in a way where they knew they had to be alert. We developed exploration activities, and you yourself helped us with Google Classroom, where through Google Slides, we could monitor them throughout the period. And that turned into a key need. We had to be able to see that, 5 minutes have passed. Has this child started the assignment? 10
Right.
minutes has passed. Have they made as much progress as I would expect? when the students are just told eventually by tomorrow, get this thing done, that really hurts their learning because all they're trying to do is achieve completion. Maybe, and another challenge was they would just look up things online and submit answer keys. And we needed them to learn, not just go seek out answers and give the answers to us. We know the answers.
And that's a challenge we're trying to get over right now. The students just completing for completion and not understanding.
Right. You're
Spending 2 years online.
Yeah, this is the damage is ongoing. We have the deficits, but it also affected their study skills, their learning styles, I believe, were affected by this. Yeah.
What was the leadership's response to any access challenges, like referring to students having access to the devices or even internet? So as a leader in the building, what was the response?
You know, thinking back to the sudden nature of going virtual in March 2020, the response wasn't immediate because there weren't solutions immediately available at that time. But leadership did immediately start working on it. And ultimately, students were able to check out Chromebooks and take them home. And then there were free hotspots for families in need. So those are two key things that happen. We still have areas for growth. There's a help desk students can call, but we were told they could never get through. And so really teachers end up acting as tech support because we can hand students the device, we can give them the hotspot, but that doesn't mean they won't have issues accessing all the sites they need to get to. So.
Okay. And you mentioned before the different technology, the XP Pen and the use of Google Classrooms, and definitely my favorite, Google Slides. How could teachers be trained for these technologies and programs?
Yeah, there are different training needs. I personally think we had some teachers retire last year because they just never felt that they could grasp the technical nature of the work. So I think ongoing training to build technical skills for teachers who didn't grow up with technology, they have different needs and they need some very, very basic training to be able to do this. But for people who are reasonably proficient with technology, there needs to be ongoing training regarding the pedagogy when you're using that technology, because that's what we found. We spent a lot of time in the math department seeking ways to really reach the students in this new environment.
And that leads me to my next question. How does a school meet the needs of the students in an online learning environment? And how could they be identified, the needs?
I think we should, reconsider how we meet the needs of support services students. We should ask ourselves, what does that look like in a virtual setting? This is just something that hasn't been solved. We think about all the years that went into educational research that got us where we are. And then here, people are just winging it. I think there needs to be more research into what effective teaching strategies are, remote.
For those with needs support services?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about all kinds of needs. Like, let's think about ELL. These students, English isn't their first language. If they struggle and everything's verbal, I know I have trouble understanding people more on Teams than in person. I don't know what it is, could be background noise, whatever, but what are we doing to help our ELL learners? Because that is an extra challenge for them.
Okay. And last question, what do you feel are the lasting impacts of the remote learning on instruction, teachers, leadership, and the students?
Okay. I'm optimistic. I think eventually students will, I don't think it's permanent damage.
Mhm.
Students do have deficits, and I think they can overcome them if we can get them to really be as engaged as they were before the pandemic. If we can't, then I worry we have students who kind of just gave up on school.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
I worry about virtual instruction from the standpoint, I've seen some of the virtual classes at the college level, and it seems that students are just supposed to complete a bunch of assignments, turn them in, they're good to go. And I wonder, how do you become an engineer or a doctor if you didn't really learn anything deeply? You're just completing a bunch of assignments. So I worried about students not being able to achieve their long-term goals because of these challenges. I think there has been some positive
Mhm.
outcomes. Teachers resistant to using technology who still did a paper pencil worksheet approach have been forced to
Mhm.
do things with technology, and they see the great activities and projects and exploration opportunities
They see
online.
the benefit of the technology.
Yes, there,
That's
and so that's a positive impact.
Mhm.
I think there will be long-term repercussions regarding teacher shortages, and I
Mhm.
think administrators need to really start thinking about that now if they haven't already. What's being done to manage teacher morale when we're in a more challenging situation and you know that we're going to have shortages. More
Mhm.
teachers retired, younger people seem less likely to go into teaching. What are we going to do about this? This is going to be a crisis.
Mhm. And what would you say the impact would be on instruction?
Long-term impact on instruction, my hope is it's better coming out of the pandemic, whether we're in person or not. Teachers have more tools and they have more methods of reaching students. Even in face-to-face now, I am using some of the things that we developed for the virtual setting.
Correct. It's sort of like a hybrid. We have to use both
Yeah.
to
Hmm.
keep them engaged.
Hmm.
Yep. Well, I want to thank you, Ms. Jackson. That is it for our interview.
Well, thank you. You were a leader during the pandemic and you helped the whole department navigate our way through it. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Have a great day.
You too.